Welcome back to the On Deck Circle podcast, brought to you by the Fantasy Six Pack. I am your host. I don't know what kind of adjective we're going to do today, but hey, Jason, how are you?
Nick, what's up, man? We got two exciting things going on in baseball right now. Things we will get into here momentarily, but what do you got for this question of the week?
All right, Jason. It is a sports question. It could be baseball related. Tell me a trade that one of your teams has made that has made you incredibly excited. Ready, set, go. All right, Jason, what do we got?
Man, it's like I got a couple. I feel like the Chicago sports scene has been pretty bad over the last decade or so. So we got a lot of trades to fall back on. I think most recently, one of the big trades that's got me excited is obviously the Bears trading the number 1 pick overall for the 10th overall pick, an extra first this year, and DJ Moore. However, that has not translated into very much success on the football field this year. But that was a lot of optimism when that trade came in.
I'd still be pretty pumped about it because they would have had to have picked one of the quarterbacks if they had to pick.
Right.
And they wouldn't have picked Stroud and they wouldn't have picked Anthony Richardson. So I think just Bryce Young is just like a different version of Josh Fields or Justin Fields. Who the fuck's Josh Fields?
But
is there one 8 as well after you finish this?
So for the trades wise, for the Cubs purposes, I feel like trading for Anthony Rizzo when it happened was huge, just because he had been getting a lot of buzz. Right, he went from Boston to San Diego, and then from San Diego to Chicago. So knowing that that very touted prospect, and then the Cubs, getting him here in Chicago was huge.
Was that Theo? I'm assuming it was Theo.
Yeah, that was Theo's first move as a Chicago Cub.
This guy here.
Yeah, for sure. It was he followed him. And Jed Hoyer and Theo made that deal when Jed Hoyer was in San Diego. Theo traded him from Boston to San Diego to Jed Hoyer.
That's interesting. And then I know the one that you should say for the one that you hate the most, but please tell me if it is the same as what I believe.
Mine right now is the Chris Bryant trade.
Oh, mine was not that, but okay.
Only because still to be determined, but a lot of stuff we've gotten back from him so far. Not that he's been great, but he was a fan favorite here in Chicago, and he had a lot of success here. And so then to see him go for basically some guys right now that just have not kind of had any sort of productive output for this team so far, it's been a little bit of a disappointment. But what were you going to say?
It was going to be Quintana.
Oh, Quintana. Yeah, that one hurt too.
Just because Cease would be so great.
I feel like now,
that'd be
right. Right now, I'm okay with giving him up for Eloy, but Eloy and Cease,
that's where it is because
Cease hurt.
Yeah, Cease was good, man. This is all because my team, the Boston Celtics, I believe, Lillard got traded. I think I mentioned it at the end of the episode. And
you briefly mentioned it. You said that the Celtics were still better, and now they're even way better.
And now they're even better. What's so great is they have no one to guard anybody on the Celtics. And now the Celtics then get their all-world defender.
Yeah. The best thing about all this, because I hate Milwaukee Bucks. I hate all Wisconsin sports. The best thing about this whole deal, for one, the Celtics already have had their number, right? They've always beaten the Celtics or I was calling them the Bucks. Then they're like, the only way we can beat the Celtics is if we go out and get Damian Lillard. Meanwhile, Portland then sends them Drew Holiday to Boston. That was just a masterpiece of a deal for Boston. I was ecstatic when I saw that second deal come through, and I'm like, Boston was like, wait a minute, you think your guys are smart? We are one step ahead of you. We're now taking your all-world defender point guard that can also score 20 points a night
All-star.
Yeah, and now we added him to our team. It was awesome.
It's so good. I don't know if I told you this. This is a little bit of an issue in my current life with the many ones that I have. Is this opening night is October 27th.
Okay.
So I go back. John Mulaney and Pete Davidson are going on tour.
Okay.
Great. Two of my favorite comedians out there.
Yep.
I get tickets for me and my wife. Just get them. Whatever. Great. Can't wait. I look at the fucking date. It's
October
opening
27th.
night.
Yeah. Wait, are they on tour together? Mulaney and Davidson? Okay.
Yeah. That's good. It's gonna be good. And the way I look at it is they both might like OD and die at one point. So I mean, what are the odds I'm gonna go see him? So it's still Celtics. It's boom or bust at this point.
Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced that this might be the year, but I don't know, man. I'm so excited. And then for a trade that I hate, this is just because I was younger, but it's when Nomar got traded
To the Cubs.
to the Cubs. It ultimately like worked out. They got Orlando Cabrera, I think, who was fine, but it was just like that was just my guy. And it was before I understood like baseball, and I was like, well, why'd they trade their best player? Like, obviously Nomar is their best player. He's the shortstop. He's Nomar. But yeah, I'm excited for the Celtics, and I just love trades in general, especially in like Dynasty Baseball and football, everything. I've been trading everything at all points in my life.
A little fun note before we get into this real quick. I also will be at a comedy show on October 27th, which is also a random fact. I am going to see Christina P. of Your Mom's House podcast.
I don't know who that is.
Tom Segura's wife.
Oh, love Tom Segura.
Yeah. So his wife is also a comedian who I've really gotten to. She's a little bit, might be a little bit above your age range, but she was also on Real World or Road Rules on MTV back in the day when I used to watch that. And then she married Tom Segura, and they have a podcast together, which is called Your Mom's House. Highly recommend the podcast. You can find it on YouTube. Comes out every Wednesday. Great podcast. I'm going to see her on October 27th in Madison, Wisconsin.
Nice.
So we will both be laughing our asses off at a comedy show while Boston wins the home opener.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't get excited about basketball because the Bulls are rolling out the same mediocre fucking lineup as this year, which is a really disappointment. So I'm not even getting
just become like a Celtic fan. You can.
I'm like a secondary fan to Boston at this point because the Chicago Bulls just love to live in fucking mediocrity for the last, was it not like 28 years? For the last 28 years, we've just lived in mediocrity.
Yeah. It's just like, well, we were good once.
Well, we were the 8th seed, and then we were the 2nd seed once, and then that's where we stand. And then they're like, well, hey, we were in the play-in tournament last year, so let's just roll out that same lineup again.
I do wish they brought Pat Bev back.
I really wanted Pat Bev back as well. Now he's on Philadelphia, but it is baseball. With baseball still here, got a few more weeks left here. 2 exciting things kicking off this week. First and foremost is obviously the postseason. So I thought it'd be fun to go through the brackets, do a little bracketology here, see where we stand and who we think is going to make it and who's going to win it all. It's kind of not a lot of, you don't need to put a lot of thought into it. Just a quick rundown of who we think is going to go on to the next round and then who actually is going to go. So we'll start at the top left. Obviously, the wild card games have had a one game. They kind of swayed a little bit, but you never know. Okay.
I'm going to grab a pen and paper, Jason.
Okay, I like that. So we can kind of keep this official, right? Because I can't update this bracket. It's just a JPEG image. It's not an interactive image, so I'm not able to
breaking out my portfolio for this one.
Love it.
All right. So let's see what
we're gonna start on the top left, and I think Minnesota wins that. Obviously, if this would have been yesterday,
who's pitching today?
It's actually a really good matchup today. It's Jose Barrios versus Sonny Gray.
That's not a good matchup. Barrios is going to poop his pants.
Yeah, okay.
Especially against his old team.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree. Going into the series, I thought Toronto would win it up, beat Minnesota, but with the 1-0 lead,
right.
Minnesota wins one of these next two games for sure.
So we both picked Minnesota there. Great. Now we going down.
Bottom left. Texas, Tampa. Today, it's Nathan Eovaldi versus Zach Eflin. I think Texas goes on to win that one.
It's Tampa today. I think Tampa wins today. Is it best of 3? Is that how this works?
Yep, and I believe all 3 games are. I believe all 3 games go to the higher seed, right? Like all 3 games are in Tampa. I'm pretty sure.
I think you're correct. With that wild crowd.
Yeah, exactly. I say Texas wins at least one of the next 2, maybe even today.
I'm going Tampa, and you're going Texas. Okay.
Yep. All right, let's just keep going with the wild cards. Arizona, Milwaukee. Just because I hate Milwaukee, I'm going to go Arizona. Not just because they have a 1-0 lead. I think Arizona can still.
I have no idea how they won yesterday.
They beat arguably Milwaukee's best pitcher with one of their worst pitchers, and now they get Zach Gallen on the bump today. I think Arizona closes it out today.
I'll go Arizona too.
This next one's easy. Philadelphia wins today. Miami really had no business being in the playoffs, which is part of the reason. This is one of the reasons why I did not mind the Cubs missing the playoffs or the wild card round, because they were not going to beat Milwaukee or Philadelphia. So poo-poo them, get them out of the playoffs. Miami will lose again today, and it'll be Philadelphia.
All right, so now
back to the top left. Minnesota versus Houston. I'm going Houston. I think Houston's
going Minnesota.
Okay.
I think we have a little Cinderella story on our hands here.
You know what? I wouldn't be shocked. Minnesota finally has the good pitching to go with the decent hitting. Pitching obviously is king in postseason. Houston's got a really good pitching staff as well as an even better offense. So I'm going to go Houston over Minnesota in 6.
Did you see Lopez wearing the Johan Santana jersey yesterday? I saw that and I was like, oh.
That was sick. I think the Cinderella story of Baltimore gets shut down quickly, and I think they lose to Texas. I would even say it might even be in 5 games. I think Baltimore's over. Yeah, I don't think they have the pitching. I think the young, inexperienced team finally meets its match against a pretty hot Texas team.
I'm going Baltimore over Tampa in this because I have Tampa going on.
Yep.
So you're going Texas. Good.
And then it's going to be Dodgers versus Arizona, and I think it's Dodgers in 7 over Arizona.
In 7?
5. It's 5, I think, right? 5?
Yeah. 5. I'd probably go LA too. Yeah. LA. And then Atlanta, right?
Yeah. Atlanta over. Well, I don't know. That's going to be to me, that'll be probably the best matchup in all of these matchups will be Atlanta versus Philly. 2 super dominant teams. Philly's been pretty hot lately. Atlanta's obviously been the best team all year, but I think Atlanta gets it done.
Yeah. Atlanta's so good, man. They're just, and they've been like, they're not fazed by this.
Right.
Philly's crazy though. Philly's a sneaky.
Philly's sneaky because I think they have a better pitching staff than Atlanta, and we all know in the postseason, pitching is what wins you games. You can only hit so many home runs off of bad pitchers all year long, Atlanta. But Philly's got a good offense too, and I think a better pitching staff than Atlanta. So that's going to be a good matchup, but I think it's Atlanta ultimately. All right, so back to the AL. It's Battle of Texas, and I think Houston comes out on top in the AL.
And then I have the O's.
You got the Orioles going out of the AL.
Yeah.
The young, hot, inexperienced team is making its first postseason appearance in I don't even know how long, probably since the 90s.
Go Baltimore.
All right, and then LA versus Atlanta. I think Atlanta gets it done. Atlanta's been the best team all year, and I think they'll continue to show their dominance on both the offense and the pitching side. So then it's going to be Houston versus Atlanta. And I think Atlanta, it's kind of chalky, but I'm going to go Atlanta to win it all.
And then I have Atlanta in 4.
Yeah. It's hard to argue against it. I know it's super chalky, but I mean, if you look at that Atlanta lineup, compared with the Atlanta pitching staff and that bullpen. They just have the most complete team. I think Atlanta is still proving, going to prove why they were the best team all year and just continue to, go through that. However, I think that Philly series is going to be the best of all of these, Phillies versus Atlanta in the NLDS.
Yeah.
I really wish that was for the ALCS. That would be awesome.
If they could have been at the top of the bracket and them at the bottom.
Yeah, that'd have been so much better. But here we are.
I really don't like the Dodgers. Dodgers aren't they're not that good.
I would love for Arizona to beat LA. Not even gonna lie. I don't think it'll happen, but
it would be like awesome. a great not a story, but just like something different,
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm here for Arizona too, out of the AL. If I'm rooting for anybody out of the AL or the NL, it's gonna be Arizona.
Yeah.
And then trust me, I would love Tampa Bay to beat Texas. These are my bracketology was more on who I think will win, not who I want to win. I definitely do not want to see Houston in another fucking World Series. Absolutely not. I'm over them. But I think they've been in a lot of World Series and will continue to be in a lot of World Series because they have a very good team.
Yeah, I agree.
So not only did the postseason start this week, but so did a lot of Dynasty Baseball's love stories, and that's the Arizona Fall League. Arizona Fall League, for those who don't know, it's like a extended season for teams to put. So there's 6 teams total. Each team is made up of 5 MLB teams, and they can all send down any of their minor leaguers to combine to make a full team. And a lot of times it's guys that maybe were hurt throughout the year or guys that teams want to get an extended look at. They don't want their season to end yet. They may have missed out on a lot of at-bats, so they send them off to the Arizona Fall League. It runs for roughly a month and a half, the month of October and a little bit into November in the Arizona complex. Again, they send a lot of top prospects down there to get get a little bit more advanced competition against. Sometimes, a lot of these guys face off against not good competition, like stuck in single A or whatever it may be. This year, while not the greatest of crops that have been down there in years past, we do get 10 of MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects in the Arizona Fall League. And I will give you those names now so we can kind of grasp and maybe pick out some names that we're excited to see a little bit longer go, which is weird because there's a couple top pitching prospects, which you don't really see too much.
Yeah, wasting some bullets out there.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go in order of MLB's top 100. The number 1 prospect, a ranked prospect for MLB Pipeline in the Arizona Fall League is Colson Montgomery, shortstop for the White Sox. I believe he was their first round draft pick
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, last year, maybe 2 years ago, something like that. So he's the highest ranked prospect in the Arizona Fall League this year. Followed up by the 19th overall prospect, Carson Williams, shortstop for the Rays. What do you know? The Rays have another middle infield prospect that's making waves. And then we get to our first pitching prospect, 31st overall prospect for MLB Pipeline. That's Ricky Tiedemann of the Toronto Blue Jays. Shout out Mimi. And we'll continue going forward. 39th ranked prospect, Harry Ford, catcher for the Mariners.
Love me
very intriguing prospect. Yeah, very intriguing prospect. I'd like to see what he can do down at the Arizona Fall League. Followed up by the next top pitching prospect, ranked 54th overall, Jackson Jobe, number 1 overall pick like 2 years ago by the Detroit Tigers. Yeah, shout out Dave. Then followed that up by the 58th overall prospect, Kyle Manzardo, first baseman for the Cleveland Guardians. 67th overall prospect, Jace Jung, second base for the Tigers. So the Tigers have 2 of their top 100 prospects. Their top 2 prospects going down to the Arizona Fall League. Jace Jung, the younger brother of Josh Jung of the Texas Rangers. And then someone that I'm excited to see more of, 71st overall prospect, Kevin Alcantara, the Chicago Cubs, goes down to the Arizona Fall League. And then they're rounding it all out. There's 2 more. Chase DeLauder, outfielder for the Cleveland Guardians. So both Cleveland and Detroit sending top 2 prospects, top 100 prospects down to the Arizona Fall League. And then the last but not least, 89th overall prospect, Kevin Pareda, catcher for the Mets. Of those names, who are you most excited to see more of this season?
I think it's Kyle Manzardo, just because he had a season that wasn't great. He had some personal things going on, and I think it would be good for him to really, I don't want to say like up his stock, but reaffirm his place in these like types of rankings. He's a hell of a player. Towards the end of this this season, I think he hit like I follow like an Indians prospect guy, and I think he hit like 4 home runs in like 3 days or something. He had something crazy, like a crazy amount of homers towards the end of the year in like a week stretch. And I just want to see more of him. I think I have 1 share of him, but it was always him or Tristan Cassis at the beginning of this season. And we never really saw Manzardo like really develop and really separate himself. And it was more of a Cassis type year. But I'm interested to see him the most, I'd say.
Yeah, good call out. He actually did end up having a really good month of September. 6 home runs, 15 RBIs, batted .254 in the month of September for Cleveland for AAA. And he's one of those guys too where, you know, he was traded away from Tampa. When that happens, it's not usually a good sign. Goes on to be with Cleveland. So he was also, there was rumblings that he might make his debut this year. He did not. Hence probably why he's going on to the Arizona Fall League. Cleveland needs to see some more out of him to make sure that he's ready to be available, possibly even for the opening day roster next year. They have an opening at first base in Cleveland now with Josh Bell getting shipped out. So there's a good possibility if he is follows up strong September with a strong Arizona Fall League and maybe a good spring training, we could see Kyle Manzardo on the opening day roster for Cleveland next year. So I think that's he needs to have a good Arizona Fall League to kind of just supplant himself as saying, look, I'm not the guy that Tampa Bay tried to get rid of. I'm still, able to produce at a high level, and I'm deserving of an opening day roster spot. So I think that's a really good call out with Manzardo. And then obviously the pitchers, Jackson Jobe. This guy was the number 1 overall prospect, the number 1 overall pick just 2 years ago in the draft. Everyone, when the Tigers took him, everyone was like, "Wow, it's kind of a shocker." That was the same year as Jack Leiter, I believe, and somebody else. There was a couple of pitching prospects at the top of the draft, and they took Jackson Jobe for some reason. And so I'd like to see what he can do as some advanced competition. Also, Colson Montgomery. This is a guy that the White Sox, their system is just depleted, and they need to have some sort of glimmer of hope. Because I don't know if you saw that, you probably didn't see the numbers outside of Chicago. This is probably an in Chicago thing, but ratings were down like 40, or attendance was down, or ratings were down 41% for the White Sox this year. So they are trending downward. So any sort of glimpse of hope in that minor league system would be huge for the White Sox, even though I'm not a huge White Sox fan. I'm a Cubs fan, but still, as a baseball fan, I think they need to see something out of Colson Montgomery, who also had a really good year this year too. And then obviously, for homerism purposes, Kevin Alcantara, obviously what he can do. But then also Chase DeLauder, the other Guardians prospect. This guy was a monster bat in college, hit for a super high average, ended up having a really good year this year in the minors. See if he can follow that up with a strong Arizona Fall League, because that would be huge for him. I think he's got a really advanced approach to the plate and has really good bat-to-ball skills. So to see him get against some good competition would be really good.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Jason. Not really Arizona Fall League based, but something that just popped in my head. Did you know? So first, have you seen on Twitter where people will be like, "Oh, no one's talking about this," and it'd be like an IKF like fake stat line of like 48 home runs?
No.
Okay, so it's like a thing somewhere deep in the fantasy baseball Twitterverse. I saw Jake Berger. He actually hit 34 home runs.
Yeah.
I had no idea, like at all. The White Sox thing is what really brought it up to me.
Yeah.
But he hit 250, 34 home runs.
Was that not, maybe that was me and Dap. I thought we talked about this.
I was not around for a Jake Berger.
Maybe that may have been the waiver wire, because Jake Berger was somebody that we would talk about almost weekly about picking up off the waiver wire. He was like criminally underowned the whole like second half. But yeah, he hit 32 home runs, which is insane. and he's only he's young. He's still only 27, but missed out on like 2.5 seasons because he tore his Achilles tendon twice. Former top 10 pick by the White Sox, and they just shoved him off to the side like he was nothing.
Like,
well,
and
not quite
he
nothing,
hits
but
30 with or 30, 28 home runs with them this year. Like,
yeah,
that was one of like when the Marlins traded for him, I was like, oh, like whatever. This is just me not being fully into this season, I guess. I don't know, man. It was jarring for me to see that Jake Berger hit that many home runs. So talking about people that I'm going to try and buy. I might try and buy Jake Berger just because maybe the owner doesn't know he's that good.
Yeah, like I said, they traded him away after he hit 25 home runs for the White Sox.
Yeah.
Obviously, not a huge, struck out a ton, either hit a home run or struck out a lot. But again, this is essentially his first full year in the majors as a 27-year-old. So it's not like you can't expect a ton from him as far as an advanced approach at the plate. So I thought that was shocking when they traded him. Again, it wasn't for nothing. They did get a pretty decent prospect back, but it was a pitcher, and I feel like White Sox always do a good Jack Eater.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
Which we'll talk about here in a minute. But I feel like White Sox are always good at finding and developing pitchers. So for them to give up on a hitter for another pitcher was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So those are the top prospects in the top 100. Obviously, there's more. A lot of teams send off like, maybe 3 or 4 of their top 30. There are other guys in there that just aren't in the top 100 that we didn't mention. One of those guys, or two of those guys that we'll talk about here are going to be some top performers that performed. It's only been 2 days, so the opening day was on Monday for Arizona Fall League. So there's only been 2 days, not counting today. It'll be a third day. First guy, Max Muncy, not that Max Muncy. Max Muncy, the shortstop for the Oakland Athletics, not to be confused by the slugging first baseman or second baseman for the Dodgers, but spelled exactly the same. But he's a shortstop for the A's. On Monday, he went 4 for 5, 2 RBIs, a home run, 2 stolen bases, and a triple shy of the cycle. He was somebody that he's outside the top 100, but he's one of those prospects that's known within dynasty circles. I feel like that he has got a little bit of expectations outside of a top 100 prospect. He's someone that you should definitely be keeping an eye on. See what he does in this Arizona Fall League. Only problem is he'll probably be traded. Well, it's probably a good thing, but he'll be traded off of Oakland at some point.
Yeah.
That's what Oakland does, is they take all their top prospects and trade them away. But that may be a good thing for Max Muncy. Maybe he'll eventually go on and be somebody important somewhere else. The other one that we just briefly mentioned and we talked about was Jack Eater of the White Sox. He was a top 10 pick for the Marlins a couple years ago too. He was traded straight up for Jake Berger. He pitched, I believe, yesterday, 3 innings, no runs, 3 Ks. Really good changeup from him. He will probably make his appearance, I would assume, next year for the White Sox. He was a college pitcher. He was a really good year this year. He's having a really good, strong push at the end of the year here. I would be shocked if he's not at some point up with the White Sox next season. Those are some of the guys that weren't in the top 100 that made a pretty big impact within the first 2 days. Now to look at some of the names that we did mention within the top 100. Chase DeLauder that we mentioned. He went 2 for 4 home run, and he had 5 RBIs in last night's game, which is a career high. 5 RBIs in any game, whether it be Arizona Fall League, minor league, whatever. That's a huge deal. Again, 2 for 4, batting 500 in the game. Again, this is a guy that hits for a really high average. Get him while you can, because I feel like if the owner doesn't know yet, he's about to be having a huge breakout, I think, next year for Cleveland in the minor leagues. Try and buy him now while you can. I wouldn't call it quite a buy low because he was a pretty high pick. I think it was Cleveland's first round pick, like a top 15 pick last year. So he's not super buy low, but you can definitely get him lower than you will be at 2 Apple after this year, I think. Jackson Jobe pitched Monday, 4 innings, 4 Ks, did give up 2 hits and 2 walks, but 1 run. Gotta love that Jackson Jobe. Like I said, he's one of the guys I want to see him perform at a very high level here in the Arizona Fall League. He's been putting down there. He's basically if it wasn't for Tiedemann, he'd be the number one pitching prospect down there. But I think Tiedemann might have a little bit of slight edge on him, in my thoughts at least. Tiedemann also pitched last night, 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, 3 walks, gave up 1 run. Super dominant performance out of him, which you'd love to see in his first start at the Arizona Fall League. And then only other guy in the top 100 that had a decent start so far was Kyle Manzardo. He went 1 for 4 with a 2 RBI single last night's game. Again, super small sample size. You only have 2 games to choose from, so there has not been a lot of top performances to talk about. But I feel like with the kicking off this week, I thought it'd be a good topic to talk about. You can watch the game if you do have an MLB.TV subscription. You can watch the games. They're usually on anywhere from it's in Arizona, so for you it's like 3 hours behind. So you could probably start watching them at like I think like 8 o'clock your time or something, 9 o'clock your time they start on MLB.TV. You can watch those. There's usually at least 1 or 2 games aired on televised, I should say, on MLB.TV. It's great for dynasty hounds like us that want to get some advanced,
a little bit more research.
Yeah, a little bit more deeper looks into these top prospects. So, and Nick's getting blown up about some trades for Chase the Lauder getting rejected out there. But that's gonna do it for this week's On Deck Circle. Just kind of thought it'd be fun to talk about some of the Arizona Fall Leagues. We did our postseason recap. I forgot to change the overlay, but that's okay. Next week, I think it's probably time we finally should jump in and just kind of review our awards. Maybe do the final award show because obviously all the games have been completed now. That'll be our topic next week. Next week we can talk about. So we will be back next week. But until then, Nick, do you have anything you want to leave with the audience before we leave?
Celtics are better than the Bucks.